Hi everybody, it's me, Katie, and welcome back to my channel where it is all Revolutionary War all the time. On June 17th, 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill raged just outside Boston, Massachusetts on the Charlestown Peninsula. But the fighting did not occur only on the summit of Breed's Hill. During the battle, American snipers were posted in the village of Charlestown, where they took cover in the buildings and houses of the town in order to fire upon the attacking British troops. The Americans were so successful at inflicting considerable casualties that in retaliation, the British burnt the village of Charlestown to the ground. I hope you're wearing your walking shoes today because we are going to go to the Bunker Hill battlefield and then we'll take a stroll down to where Charlestown Village was located and we'll see, is there anything left of old Charlestown from when it was burnt by the British on June 17th, 1775. Welcome to Charlestown, everybody. I'm so happy and excited to be here with you all. Let's climb this hill. We made it, everybody. Welcome to the summit of Breed's Hill in Charlestown and the location of the Bunker Hill Monument. And the Bunker Hill Monument kind of represents where the main American defensive position was located on June 17th, 1775 during the battle. This is where the redoubt stood. And the redoubt was like that earthen fort that the Americans threw up on the night of June 16th going into the 17th. The redoubt was the main objective of the British on June 17th, 1775. If they could capture the redoubt, the Charlestown Peninsula would be theirs. The redoubt was the main American stronghold during the battle. There were Americans at other positions all across this peninsula that were really important, and we'll talk more about those in other videos. But the redoubt was the main American stronghold. We all kind of know the story of how the British made a couple attempts on the redoubt and the Americans successfully repulsed them every time until they began to run low on ammunition. And that led to the British being able to storm the redoubt and cause the Americans to retreat. The British did, of course, end up taking possession of the whole peninsula. The peninsula was largely bucolic. It was crisscrossed by low stone walls and split rail fences. Here you can see the village of Charlestown down in this southwestern tip of the peninsula, and you can see that this area looks kind of built up, much more developed than the rest of the peninsula. So this is where the American troops were stationed, in the village. And the village was comprised of several hundred wooden structures, like houses, shops, and barns. The American troops took positions within those structures in order to fire upon the forming British forces, specifically the British left wing. The British had landed here at Morton's Point, and the way they formed was all across the base of the peninsula here, stretching all the way from Morton's Point to the village of Charlestown. So we're looking out over the city of Boston from the summit of Breed's Hill, and you can see the Boston skyline there. What you can't see is the Charles River, and we're actually on a peninsula across the Charles River from Boston. So why don't we start heading down in that direction where Charlestown Village stood in 1775. So I'm kind of starting to walk downhill now, away from the monument, away from Breed's Hill, toward where Charlestown Village stood. And as you can kind of tell, it is definitely still a downhill slope. And I'll kind of stop up here and give you a sense of the downhill slope and where we're located. You can see the Freedom Trail behind me. So just kind of panning now, you can see this downhill slope a little bit, but then turning around, there's the monument. So I've only walked like a minute or two from the monument uphill and moving on downhill in the direction of Charlestown Village.
Here's the locations of the redoubt and the village, and that yellow area in between is where the British left was positioned. These were troops under the command of Brigadier General Robert Piggott, as well as Marines under Major John Pitcairn.
The really incredibly cool thing is that I am walking in the exact area where the British troops under Piggott and Pitcairn were attempting to form and attempting to make the assault on the redoubt on top of Breeds Hill where we just were. So this is the very area where the British left wing was located. Now, what I've been totally obsessed with is the fact that down here in Charlestown Village, 200 plus buildings were all going up in flames at the same time, while this British wing attempted to mount that assault on the redoubt. So while they were being harassed by American sniper fire, of course, once the British bombed the village of Charlestown, it was over. The Americans had to abandon the position and retreat to safety.
And this map actually shows where the rebel troops were stationed in the houses firing on the British. You can see that it says line of rebels in the houses. Now, because of the losses that were being suffered by the British because of these rebel shooters in the village, British warships were ordered to fire upon the town. And so they prepared red hot balls for that purpose. And what that means is they heated cannonballs until they were like glowing red hot, and then fired those balls into the village. And because the village was made of wood, those ultra heated, red hot, glowing cannonballs would just cause the wood to ignite.
But what really amazes me and blows my mind is that these are not great distances. This is the scope of this is very small. And yet this battle absolutely raged. 200 plus wooden structures all on fire at once must have been an absolutely unbelievable conflagration. And for the troops, the attacking British troops, to be so close to it in such in such a small area is just amazing to me. And even the Americans in the redoubt atop Breeds Hill, we just left there. I've just been walking for like 5 minutes, and yet they too were so incredibly close to this total inferno.
British General John Burgoyne witnessed the Battle of Bunker Hill unfolding in front of his eyes from his position at the Copp's Hill Battery in the north end of Boston. And he said, the troops were exceedingly hurt by musketry from Charlestown. General Howe sent us word by a boat and desired us to set fire to the town, which was immediately done. We threw a parcel of shells, and the whole was instantly in flames. And these shells were like fire bombs. They differed from cannonballs in that they were hollow and they were filled with something combustible, like gunpowder. They would be fused and then fired from a mortar up into the air, and the shell or the carcass would land. And hopefully that fuse would be ignited and it would basically be a firebomb. When that shell hit, it would just spill and splash fire everywhere.
And we've made it. I thought I'd take a seat for a couple seconds by this huge fish sculpture behind me. I don't know what it represents, but during all of the archaeological digging that occurred here in the city square area of Charlestown over the past couple decades, some foundations were unearthed. And these foundations date not only from the 18th century, but predate the Battle of Bunker Hill by about 140 years. These foundations were from buildings that were built in the 1600s, and one of them was a tavern built in 1635 called the Three Cranes Tavern, and it was burnt during the Battle of Bunker Hill after having been in operation for about 140 years. This is totally amazing. This kind of shows the strata of earth in this area, and it tells you that there is actually a layer of charcoal and ash that underlies Charlestown still to this day. And here it is. Here is the foundation of the Three Cranes Tavern that had been in operation from 1635 until it was burnt to the ground along with the rest of Charlestown in 1775 during the Battle of Bunker Hill. And it's really amazing. As you can see, there's been some improvements done, and using information, they've been able to actually identify parts of the structure. Here we have the hearth and the chimney base, which is totally amazing, and the back door of the tavern. Really, really cool. Looks like this here is designated the main room above the wine cellar, and then over here we have the entry to the wine cellar. Really amazing, very cool. And it's a small park, so you can come down and visit it if you're ever in Charlestown. It's only, as we know, about a 7-minute walk from the top of Breeds Hill. And that's kind of part of what is so amazing, is that this was only one of hundreds of buildings all in flame on June 17th, so close to where the British lines were forming and to the redoubt on top of Breeds Hill.
The burning of Charlestown is just one small facet of the Battle of Bunker Hill. I'll put more Bunker Hill videos here, as well as some videos on Lexington and Concord. Thank you all so much for sharing the journey with me. I hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel so you don't miss out on any more history action adventures. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.